Good morning all. So let's start today. As we had already spoken about media yesterday, today we would conclude with the topic of media. Fine. So today we would first start with impact of media. How did, when we have already started, yesterday when we learned, how did we start with media? How did we start with the different channels of media? How did we get connected? Fine. With communication and media. Like we had television, radio, all those things when we could. That this made us connect throughout the world. So today when we are talking about impact of media, first let's take impact of media into educational sector. When we are talking about impact of media, fine. First it is impact of media. First completely on communication when we are talking. See, whatever we are going to study or whatever it is, you are communicating it. Fine. So when we are talking about impact of media in educational sector, earlier when we say we had only, olden days we had is under the roof of tree, like in the villages or whatever, even in the cities or villages, under the roof of tree or under a roof, education used to happen. Blackboard, chalk piece. Fine. Then later it was upgraded. Again markers, whiteboards, green boards, chalk piece, again dust-free chalk piece, all those things started. But again when we are now talking about media, imparting of media into education, now today when we see students have email IDs, they have the subject of computers, they operate computers, and that's how again the education is done. And the biggest imparting of media into education, the best and biggest example is during the COVID period. It was completely online education. So earlier it was complete offline based only because that time we did not have, how do we, if suppose COVID should have come years back or any critical conditions years back, when it was, for any reason, if there are holidays, no education, because that time there was no so much of development, and that's how we could not. But today students are allowed online and offline on both the modes. So during COVID period, I think they were imparted with media so much that they were completely into online education. So today again, if we see in a positive notes, wherever you are, you can upgrade yourself, it's easy. Google, YouTube, many ways. Education, you can get it in the best form, even into online basis. So this is again helping us through media. We are getting connected and we are able to. So into education, workplace, even if we call it, workplace imparting of media. At workplace when we say, earlier offices, anything through register post or telegram, all those things were done. Today anywhere in the world you are, next minute you can update the things to them. There are so many other sources of communication media. You have laptops, computers, email, internet. This is possible. Apart from that, today you have so many other ways like Zoom meeting, Skype, Google Meet. All those things are even there that we can, as a manager, might be I am in XYZ place. Suppose I am in Mumbai and I have my whole team is scattered all over India. One Zoom meet link shared, date, everything mentioned, date, timing, all have to be in, and again that we observe who is on time, who is not on time, all those discipline criterias and everything is maintained now. So it's online or offline. Our task has become easier because anywhere we are, we can work. Work doesn't stop. So again, media is somewhere helping us out. So internet, mail, mobiles, WhatsApp, all over the world that we can work it out. So today now when we are saying with the development of media, with the development of things which is happening, imparting ourselves with media at every level has become simpler, easier and very useful. Again let me tell, education work we are speaking about even at home when we are. Even at home, we are so connected again with media. Vacation started, we have continuous 10 days off. So what do I do? So again in that case what happens? Whole time we are on television. TV is on or play some video games. Several other ways we are connected with media. We have Netflix and many such things that we are all on with. So in that case, today we are so imparted with media, it has made our life easy, simpler. Technology has again got us into so much connection with the media. And our connectivity with communication, making our life easier, again complicated too. But again it's, we have selected it. Apart from media when we are talking, now let us talk about second point that we would talk about is type of communication flow. What do you mean by type of communication flow? See, anything that we are going to communicate should have its flow, especially when we are talking into professional way of communicating or even a proper way of communication. A proper way of communication has a proper flow, and if that is followed, communication becomes more understandable and easy. But if we don't follow that, if there is no proper flow, no proper pattern followed, do you think communication is easy? I don't. I would say if there is no proper flow, no proper pattern followed, it creates misunderstanding instead of understanding. And because of that, there could be lot of havoc caused, lot of damage caused to our work and various other disturbances can happen. But if there is a proper flow, a proper pattern followed, fine, it will make our life easy. It will make our life easy in a smooth flow. Even life has a smooth flow then and a better growth. So first again when we are talking about, let's see what are the various types of communication flow. First let us start with upward flow. Okay, when we are talking about upward flow, usually this upward flow is followed by the business communities or any business, successful business. They follow this. That is passing an information into a higher level this way that it has to be communicated equally to all at the same time. And one authorized person is again there for it, who communicates, who is answerable. So, for example, when we are taking it like complaints, grievance, fine, complaint cell you have, complaint, suppose we have received a product, we have got a product through Amazon, but what we wanted was not. So again, you when you're getting it, it's not that the person who has delivered or the store that you know. There is a proper flow, there is a complaint cell which is handling the complaints, and only you can go is through them, and they smoothly handle the thing because they have their own policies. It is taken care of and very smoothly the thing finishes. Grievance cell, even when we are talking about, even they equally handle the things in the same way. So usually when it is bigger organizations or businesses, when into that is into the senior positions that they handle the upward flow. Next, when we are looking into, now when we are talking about downward flow is from the top management, it is circulated equally to the complete team. Fine. Your manager who is handling the team or a company has multiple managers, has to equally pass information to all. Cannot go to each and every individual and pass the message. So they have that flow, fine, and they accordingly take care of it, that same message, like when we are talking about any notice, fine, notice when it is circulated, so it is to everyone in the organization. But yes, again it is circulated by one concerned person, but to all, and it is equal for all. So in that case it is downward flow when we call it. From the management, for some reason tomorrow leave is declared. So many people in the organization, how would they at the last moment declare it? So they pass a circular. There is a circular passed. So again this is a downward flow. So in the same way, letters, meetings, even meetings when we are calling it, those are downward flow. Because again in a meeting, your manager is going to represent you, talk to you, give you some information which he wants to give it to all, but each and every one person the same thing. He need not waste the time going to each and every person. Let's conduct a meeting, declare what has to be declared, done. Send a notice, a circular. So these are all letters, these are all downward communication. Fine. Suppose your performance is good or bad, appreciation or the opposite, when it is depreciation, even when done, it is done through a letter, a proper mail or letter, whatever. So that is again a downward flow. Next, when we are going to, it is horizontal flow. In horizontal flow, in a company, suppose in horizontal flow, when first we are talking about it, is same level people, they need not communicate with the lower level or the higher level, but the same level people, when they want to be on the same page, want to check the performances amongst each other. How do they do? This is the horizontal flow that goes, so that we all are on the same page. Example, when we talk in a company, there are various teams, and every team is handled by a separate manager. Fine, team leader. So there are 4 teams, 4 team leaders. So when they are handling different teams, but they are all under the same roof, one company. So each and every person's performance has to be at the same level, because your performance is equally important to the company. So a manager talking to manager, manager to manager, same level people when they are communicating amongst each other. So it is like you want to know one manager talking to the other. So all the 4 managers getting connected to each other, knowing, they conducting the meeting amongst each other and knowing, because all should not know. It's only till our level that we have to discuss. It's confidential. So in that case, it would be a horizontal flow. In that, that is not the communication to lower level or to the higher level. It is amongst us, same level people. Fine. We are talking the performance or the growth or whatever factor. So it is amongst each other that it is discussed. So like resolving conflicts, sales, targets, all those things. So it is amongst the team that we discuss and it is done. So it is the same level when we are talking. Now when last, it is multi-directional communication. So when we are talking about multi-directional communication is upward, downward, horizontal, all those at the same thing when it is happening. At the same level, everyone can get into it, and that is multi-directional. When we are talking about multi-directional communication, it is helpful at all level. And how could that be? Announcements. Fine. Like when we are talking about in such cases like sharing feedback, announcements, sharing feedbacks. So in that we need not. So in multidirectional it is like it's open to all. Fine. So when we are now talking about, there are 4 different flows: upward, downward, horizontal and multidirectional. These 4 flows are important flows in media. Fine. Now let's talk about forms of communication. Forms of communication. So when we are talking about what are the forms of communication? We have various types. One is intrapersonal, second is interpersonal, third is group communication, and fourth is organizational. So when we are talking about the forms of communication, these are the forms of communication, and how is it done? Let us learn in detail about each one of them, which would help us in understanding the forms of communication and how do we do a proper communication in a proper form. We would understand it that yes, where are we? So let's learn about the forms of communication. Well, apart from this all, we even have the mass communication, which we have already studied about. Fine. Apart from this, you have mass communication. Fine. This we have already studied. So now let's go one by one with the other 4. Let's start with, when we are taking it intrapersonal, it is confined to, intrapersonal is confined to one person. Again, even communicating with, it is only confined to one. Fine, and it is, even if you are communicating, you will communicate with other one. It is not that you are communicating with various people and others are knowing about it. This is only within you. And in this case, in intrapersonal, you need not know. You are not confined to like one person talking to oneself. One person talking to oneself in an intrapersonal skills, it is like one person confined talking to oneself, knowing oneself. Fine. So now when you are talking, how do you know, how do you talk to yourself? How do you know yourself? Meditation. Fine. It's only one person, single person involved with self, that is self, one person again. You are knowing yourself, trying to learn yourself, talking to yourself. So whatever is limited, it is to within yourself. How would we know? Meditating. Fine. Example is meditation, acknowledgement, gaining knowledge. Next we are going to is interpersonal. Again, when we are talking about interpersonal skills, again, that is involving of two or more people. Fine, with whom you are talking, you are sharing your views, you are knowing some information. Fine, in that case it is interpersonal skills. That is interpersonal communication. So, for interpersonal communication, we need a interpersonal skills. That how good that we talk, how sensible that we talk, what type of information that we are producing. So, it is like in that, because more than one person is involved, like in intra, the person is talking to self. So, when we tell, don't fool yourself, because we are trying to tell lies to our own self, not to others. So, that is intrapersonal. But with interpersonal, even friends talking, that is amongst each other. Fine, with two or more than two people that you are communicating, that is interpersonal. Next, when we go, group communication. Again, in group communication, when we are seeing, it is like various group discussing on the same thing. It's groups formed, not individuals again. Various groups discussing on the same thing, because everyone has their own different views, points, opinions, and that's how the groups are formed. And those groups discussing on the same thing. Like it could even be into, suppose in a party when people have gathered, groups, there are various groups again forming and talking. Those are group communication, and apart from that, even on any topic even that you are talking, even in group discussions when we do, on the same topic but different groups are talking. Fine, everyone has their own views, they are presenting it. Again, when we are talking about in group communication, politicians, economists, these are all examples of group communications. Fine. Next, when we are going, let's go with organization communication. Again, now in organizational communication, it is those communication again in the groups happening in the organization, talking about the organization, connected to organization, for the benefits of the organization, discussing the good, bad, whatever it is. Example goes is induction, performance meet. Fine, so induction, performance meet and various such things. We are discussing our targets. So again, this is an organizational, a professional meet happening. It is addressed by a person. It happens in a proper professional manner. When an induction is taking place, in induction, when an employee joins or a student joins, they are told, again the whole group, people sitting in the organization discussing about, they first make you know what exactly the organization is, what is it working with, who are its clients, and various other things connected. So that is, again, it happens in induction. So performance, same way, how you have performed and other things. So these are professional communication, and this happens through organizational communication. Fine. And next, when we are going in an overall form, again media communication is through media that you are sharing some information. Through media you are communicating it around the world. You want to pass some message. So like when we when we take news channels, it's media communication, YouTube, various such things that is helping us in sharing the information from one place to other. Fine. And through media communication, we are easily able to communicate throughout the world. So that is again the media communication. Yes, next we have is extra personal communication. Extra personal communication, when we are talking about extra personal communication, it is not that we are communicating with humans. It is not amongst we humans that it is happening. That is interpersonal. This is extra personal. So that is, when you see sometimes, we find people talking with animals, we find people talking with birds, and this is all extra personal. We have a pet at home, pet cat, pet rabbit, dog. We communicate with them. And how do we do that? That is the extra personal communication. We understand each other, we understand the language, and that helps us in understanding each other well, and that makes our life easier, and we are able to have a happy living with each other. Fine. So that is extra personal communication. Then we have is visual communication. When we are talking about visual communication, it is through visual form. Nowadays when we say through visual form, like displaying signboards, and nowadays when we say visual communication is again increasing. Safety concerns, even when we see signal lights and other things, those are visual communication. No, it's not speaking, but we understand it. The signboard, when we are in pedestrian, when we see a signboard of walking person, that's clear. This is zebra crossing, and that's how it is. When we see, near the schools and colleges, there are those signboards kept again. So these are the visual communication. No one is there, but there is message dropped. Fine. Through sign language, that is visual communication. Well, apart from all this, we know we have verbal and non-verbal communication, which is understood, which we have already learnt. Fine. Verbal and non-verbal communication Again, in verbal communication, we know we talk. Fine, we talk to each other. Verbal communication, we understand, like we are speaking, writing. Those are all verbal form of communication that yes, we are able to pass our message in a proper way. And non-verbal, a person has come but is telling lie. How do we know? Is speaking, but I am not convinced. Why? That is because the body language, facial expressions, these are non-verbal communications. Sometimes their body language speaks. Their body language speaks what they are not able to speak. That is how, they sometimes, like usually our elders or seniors tell us that even when someone is telling a lie, we can know the person from his face. Why? The words don't support your facial expressions, because we are not experts in telling lies, that we would daily be changing our expressions. So, expressions, feelings, body language, smile, this is all non-verbal communication. Our dressing, our presentation, listening skills, listening. So, these are all non-verbal communication. So, again, when we are talking about these forms of communication, they help us in understanding this world and living in this world in a better manner. This communication, all this communication that we spoke about, that makes our life easier. We are able to communicate with our surroundings. One example I would say is, when we are talking about extrapersonal communication, seeing this weather, seeing the sky, we say it's going to rain. Did the sky tell us? No. But how did we know? Again, that's a non-verbal communication, extrapersonal communication. That silence even communicates. So, if we say communication makes our life easier, fine. So, with this, I would say is, we would end this session here with, we have understood media and types of communication, forms of communication through media, in media and everything. Fine. So, I hope this has made your understanding more better, a happy learning too. Fine. Thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye.